Hello Vault Heads, this is the self-proclaimed, sarcastically named Captain KeyForge, also known as PJ Broughton of the Steel City Snufflegators, and welcome to episode 2 of Captain's Commpod. Welcome back. This is my opinion piece. The first episode was a book review. Today we are going to be talking about foreign language decks. So, foreign language decks. As of Dark Tidings, according to Archon Arcana, so thank you for that, there are 12 different languages available in KeyForge to have decks printed in. They are English, French, Francais, German, Deutsch, Italian, Italiano, Polish, not a clue, sorry, Portuguese, Portuguese, Spanish, Espanol, Simplified Chinese, Traditional Chinese, Thai, Russian and Korean. Okay, I am all for this. So this is not about bashing having languages available printed for lots of different people. The more languages we can get the game printed in, the better that's going to be, because the more it opens up the game to people from different places, different cultures and from different languages. So yeah, it is a good thing. Personally, I actually like collecting foreign language decks. When I was younger, I studied a few different foreign languages. Je parle français, I speak a little bit of French, hablo español, I can speak Spanish alright, ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch, I speak a tiny little bit of German, although my GCSE in German is not worth the paper it's written on, and yeah, if I needed to, I could comfortably play in French or Spanish. Regarding the languages I have English, French, Spanish, Italian, German, Thai and a Chinese deck on the way. So as you can see, I am big into the decks from different languages. So big fan of them. I'd ideally like to get all 12 eventually, or keep going through. I try to get at least one language that I haven't got for each set. So we're doing okay. Also as well, I have used the Spanish deck, the paper version, not on the Crucible, in Spanish. Equally, I've played against 2 Spanish decks in competition, which is going to bring me on to the sort of main gist of today's Commpod, today's discussion, which is foreign language decks at OP level. So, I did double check the rules again. Nowhere in the rules does it discuss them. They're just legal. There's no restriction on if you are in a given country, you must bring languages of that choice. Languages belonging to that country. The same applies for reversal, which I do think is quite funny as well. So in reversal, you're absolutely, legitimately able to rock up with a Chinese deck in Britain and give your opponent a Chinese deck and say, there you are, play with that. Which is potentially a little bit cheeky, but it's certainly within the rules. It's gamey, I'll give you that, but it's within the rules. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is because when I was at UK Grand Championship, way back, sort of around about 2 years ago now, I was discussing with someone that I'd played a Spanish language deck. At that stage, I'd played 2, including the winner's deck. I played the winner with the winning deck in round 3, and obviously kicked my butt. And I was talking to a gent there, and he said he was against them. He thought that at a big event, you should only be able to bring languages belonging to the country that you're playing in, which is his opinion, and he's absolutely entitled to it. It's not one I agree with, but there is some validity there. We want to encourage everyone to play. We want to encourage children to play. And I disagree with banning a foreign language deck. I do. I think the gent who came with his Spanish deck was perfectly allowed to. I mean, again, he was Spanish. It's not like he's deliberately brought a Spanish deck to be gamey. He was Spanish from Spain. Spain is his native tongue. Most of his languages are probably going to be in Spanish. It would be no different than me rocking up at a French event with an English language deck. I am English. I speak English primarily. And you can imagine most of my decks are going to be in English. But I think there are better ways to deal with this. I do. So I'm going to talk about the different things we could do to potentially allow people to use their foreign language decks, because equally with things like decks of KeyForge and eBay and stuff like that, people are trading decks around the world. It's not just a European problem. In America, there are French-speaking parts of North America, like in Canada. There are parts of the United States where Spanish is spoken heavily. It's obviously not national language anywhere, but there are certainly parts where it's spoken. And there are people who are really competitive players over there who buy decks from Europe in different languages. So what can we do to make it a little bit easier to play when we come across a foreign language deck? Obviously, when you're looking at the card, no one would have a problem with you looking at the deck list online. I don't think anybody would, especially if you presented them with an Archon card that was in a language that they didn't understand. However, one of the things that is in the rules is you're not allowed to use a list or written implements to track the game. So if you were to say, here is a complete proxy deck of my cards for you to use whenever you need to see what a deck says to save you calling a judge and save some time, that would actually be against the rules. Equally, if you wanted to turn up with your deck, say I was going to France and I had my English deck, but I wanted to make it a little bit easier for the French people, although to be fair there's probably more French people that speak English than vice versa, but we'll just use it as an example. And I said, well, I will dig out my French decks and create a proxy deck using French cards to make it a little bit easier on the people that I'm going to be playing with. That would be against the rules as well. Again, what if I wanted to use one of my foreign language decks at reversal, and it's a non-English deck and I'm playing a reversal event in England, I suspect everybody's going to be English, and most of them aren't going to speak a foreign language, say Thai or Chinese or whatever it is. Again, the proxy deck would be against the rules. I personally think that some sort of proxy deck under those circumstances, if one player wants to, would be the best option. Giving your opponent a list of all your cards potentially provides them with an advantage. I have read that the human memory is capable of remembering 7 things. That the human memory, short-term wise, is capable of remembering 7 things. If you present someone with a 36-card deck list, most people are not going to be able to memorise all 36 cards within 2 minutes. There are certainly people who can, but that is beyond the realms of most people's memory and most people's capacity to remember at short-term notice. So to actually go, there is my list and you can keep that all game, does give them an advantage, even at Archon level. I mean, at sealed level, it especially would, because you don't even get to look at theirs. But at Archon level, it gives them an advantage too. It doesn't give them as much of an advantage at reversal, but it certainly would at Archon. So I'm not for that, really. Equally, we have judges, and you can absolutely call a judge over, what's that card? How long's that going to take every time you do it, despite the best efforts of the judge? And how long is it going to prolong the game for, constantly needing to put your hand up and go, judge, what does that card mean? Judge, what does that card mean? And I appreciate that a lot of the common cards, you will recognise the picture and you will know what it does from memory. I can imagine most people know what Infernus looks like and what it does just from memory. I can imagine most people know what Edai looks like and what it does just from memory. However, there are some rare cards that when somebody plays them, just looking at the picture, you're not necessarily going to know what that card is from memory and know what it does from memory. And equally, quite frankly, you can remember it wrong. Most of us will have lost a game at some stage, myself definitely, where we have remembered what a card does and we've not remembered the card correctly and we've misplayed it. I've done that with Skeleton Key. I thought it was Font of the Eye. Skeleton Key says action capture 1. Font of the eye says action capture 1 if a creature's been destroyed this turn. And I've lost a game because I didn't use my opponent's skeleton key with Poltergeist because I'd not destroyed one of their creatures this turn and I thought it would trigger nothing. So it happens. The mismemorizing of cards. So most of the really common ones we will get it, but there are rare ones there. And again, the more sets we get, the bigger the card pool we're going to get. The more we acquire newer players who didn't play Kota and don't know all the Kota cards, or didn't play AOA and don't know all the AOA cards as well as they know Dark Tidings or set 6 or set 7. The more it becomes a problem expecting players to know and remember every card. So I'm putting the questions out there. What do other people think would be the best answer to allowing players to use a foreign language deck without needing to call judges? Because again, I mean, the UK Grand Championship was won by a Spanish deck. Well played, he deserved to win it, and I'm glad that people came and brought their decks, and I am not at all for banning foreign language decks, but there probably were times where players earlier on in the competition needed to shout up for a judge and a judge needed to come over. I mean, to be fair, I'm pretty sure if I remember rightly, he was using a Kota deck. So again, it's the deck that had been out the longest, the most opportunity to learn the cards, the most opportunity to know what they all meant. I don't think it had anything to do with his victory, so I'm not trying to take away from his victory. I'm just trying to say, what else can we do to make it easier to allow people to play the decks they want to play under all circumstances, and to allow both players to get on and understand the game? And I think that the best option probably is the proxy deck list over anything else. And the second best option is if one player is prepared to allow it, for one player to bring a list of their cards in the language of the venue in which they're playing. And yes, if they gave that to their opponent permanently, it would present their opponent with an advantage. But equally, you could just keep it to one side. Keep it on your own side of the table, maybe. And then, literally, what does this card here, number card 3-1, what does that do? Right, there you go. There's it in your language. That saves us bringing over the judge and possibly losing 2 to 3 minutes of time within this game. So, yes, this is the captain's ramblings for today. I'd love to hear people's thoughts. You'll find my Twitter on here. You'll find my email on here. On YouTube, you'll be able to comment in the comments section. So yeah, what are your thoughts? Have you played against a foreign language deck? Did you find it easy? Did you find it difficult? What would your solutions be? Would you be cheeky enough, stroke brave enough to give someone a deck that you knew they would have absolutely no chance of playing with in reversal? What are people's thoughts? Regarding episode 3, I expect that to come sort of within the next couple of weeks. Now the British children are back at school, I've got a little bit more time on my hands and a little bit more peaceful of a home to potentially do a bit of recording of my ramblings. So the next episode should be Dark Tidings spoilers. They'll not be spoilers that are unique to me. There will be spoilers that other people have spoiled, but I would ideally like to be looking at what I think is the best card from each house and what is the worst card from each house. And as of this moment in time, nearly all the cards for Dark Tidings have been spoiled, but not quite all of them. So I'd like to do that when all the cards for Dark Tidings have been spoiled in some way, shape or form, and we're very nearly there. So we'll see how we get on with that. I have got another thing to talk about instead if it's not there, but yeah, thank you for listening to this, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So feel free to follow, to subscribe, to like, to post comments. Also as well, you can find my Twitter and email, so feel free to get back to me on there.